Welcome to this explainer. I was digging through some raw sports data recently and I stumbled across something absolutely fascinating. Today, we're going to uncover the true sporting greats, those legendary athletes who somehow defied completely flawed talent evaluation systems. We are talking about the absolute titans of the court and the pitch who achieved undeniable greatness despite being entirely overlooked by the mainstream hype machine. Okay, let's dive into this. What on earth could a legendary defensive anchor in the NBA and a European football wizard known as the Maradona of the Carpathians possibly share? Well, the answer actually bridges the gap between American basketball history and the global football pitch. Both of these incredible talents shared a journey of proving the establishment totally wrong. They were the ultimate underdogs who slipped right past the multi-million-dollar talent radars of their respective sports. Section 1. The illusion of hype. Section 2. Evolution of the draft. So, to really understand how generation-defining players get systematically missed, we have to look at the mechanics of it all. As fans, we're basically trained to trust the system, right? We assume that mainstream scouting and draft type are just infallible. But take a look at the history of the NBA draft. Back in 1960 and 1968, the draft was this exhausting marathon of 21 rounds. Teams were practically drafting guys off the street. But that drastically changed over time. It settled at 10 rounds in 1974, dropped to 7 in 1985, and finally, after negotiations with the Players Association, it was slashed to just 2 rounds in 1989. Think about what that actually means. By shrinking that process down to just 2 rounds, the NBA effectively created a massive, completely open pool of undrafted talent. These players were suddenly free to negotiate with literally any team, opening up a whole new pathway for the overlooked underdog. Section 3. Basketball's undrafted superstars. So who actually conquered this brutal 2-round system? Well, as the source material notes, unlike in the NFL, undrafted players in the NBA are much, much less likely to become recognizable stars. But when they do, their stories are absolute legend. Which brings us to Ben Wallace. He is the ultimate testament to raw determination. According to the records, he is the only modern-day undrafted player to ever be elected to the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame, receiving that incredible honor back in 2021. And his accolades, they are genuinely jaw-dropping. He didn't just scrape by as some fringe undrafted free agent. The guy played a staggering 1,088 career games over 15 seasons. That is the most of any undrafted player in history. He completely dominated as a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year, became a 4-time NBA All-Star, and fought his way to an NBA championship. In 2003, he even became the first undrafted player to be voted an All-Star starter. Wallace proved once and for all that true defensive genius and relentless hustle simply cannot be quantified by some scouts' draft projections. But hey, it's not just about grit and defense. The number 54 represents pure, explosive offensive power from an undrafted talent. In 2021, after going completely unselected in the 2016 draft, Fred VanVleet dropped 54 points in a single game. To this day, that stands as the single-game scoring record for any undrafted player in NBA history. And this brilliantly illustrates that breaking the mold wasn't just a one-off fluke. We're talking about absolute pioneers here, like John Starks, who fought his way up to become the very first modern-era undrafted All-Star back in 1994. Or consider Udonis Haslem, who became a foundational rebounding pillar for 3 Miami Heat championships. Whether it's David Wesley pouring in nearly 12,000 points to become the highest-scoring modern undrafted player, or Bruce Bowen locking down opponents for 8 all-defensive selections and 3 rings, these guys weren't just roster fillers. They became the absolute backbone of actual dynasties. Section 4. Football's Forgotten Masters. Now let's transition over to the global football pitch. Over here, players are overlooked by something far more pervasive than a simple draft: the media legacy machine. History is so often written by the loudest voices, right? And sometimes true masters of the beautiful game get pushed right to the margins. On one side of the historical spectrum, you have globally hyped household names. Legends like Pele, Zidane, Baresi, and Mateos. These are the guys in literally every greatest of all time debate. But on the other side, we have our underrated heroes: Hadji, Laudrup, Skera, and Sammer. The disparity in mainstream recognition between these two groups is just massive, even though their raw talent is arguably neck and neck.
Take Gheorghe Hagi, for example. Known as the Maradona of the Carpathians, Hagi amassed an incredible 276 goals in 646 club games. He possessed a shooting talent so otherworldly, so remarkably powerful, that it actually kind of worked against his historical reputation. Critics unfairly labeled him as one-dimensional, completely missing the fact that he had the dribbling and passing skills to match the absolute best in the game. He is basically the perfect example of a unique talent totally misunderstood by the masses.
Now, what's really interesting about this next number is the sheer scale of it. 238. Brace yourself, because that is Ronald Koeman's goal tally in 685 games. And here is the absolute shocker. Ronald Koeman was a defender. He is literally the highest scoring defender ever. He possessed a passing ability that matched world-class playmakers and used his technical brilliance to become a lethal free kick taker. He even top-scored in the 1994 European Cup. Yet somehow, his name isn't the very first one you hear when discussing the all-time greats. Or consider Gaetano Scirea, the silent champion. You always hear about Franco Baresi and those best defender lists, right? But guess who kept Baresi out of the 1982 Italian squad that actually won the World Cup? Yep, it was Scirea. He was an absolute master of the sweeper role, combining composure, skill, and just brilliant leadership. And incredibly, despite playing in defense his whole career, he never received a single red card. Not one. He won 7 league titles with Juventus and almost every trophy imaginable, but because of his quiet, contained character, he received far less historical hype. Now, when Brazilian legend Romário casually calls you the 5th best player ever, that is the ultimate social proof. And he was talking about Michael Laudrup. Even Franz Beckenbauer compared Laudrup to Pelé, Maradona, and Cruyff. Laudrup was arguably one of the greatest playmakers in history, possessing just unparalleled vision and passing ability. I mean, he won the European Cup with Barcelona and 7 league titles across 4 different clubs. Yet he's often completely overshadowed by players like Zidane in our modern conversations. And we absolutely cannot forget the players who objectively dominated the biggest international stages. Matthias Sammer practically single-handedly drove Germany to the 1996 Euro title, rightfully earning the tournament's Best Player award. Meanwhile, Hristo Stoichkov carried an unfancy Bulgarian team to top score at the 1994 World Cup with 6 goals, and Davor Šuker did the exact same thing for Croatia in 1998. They conquered the toughest, most highly pressurized tournaments on Earth, yet today they are vastly overshadowed by their heavily marketed contemporaries. Section 5. Redefining Sports Legacy. Everything we've looked at today, from Ben Wallace's 1,088 games to Gaetano Sciaria's flawless disciplinary record, really demands that we completely rethink how we measure greatness. It asks us to look way beyond the drafted elite and the media darlings, and to evaluate raw talent entirely on its own merit. So the crucial point is this. As fans with access to endless, around-the-clock media coverage, is our modern obsession with the here and now causing us to miss the hidden legends of today? Who are the undrafted heroes and the silent champions currently making history right under our noses? Keep that question in mind the next time you sit down to watch a game. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep your eyes open for true greatness.